When Kyle Shanahan found himself in times of trouble, he went to number 23 and he went to number 1. Well, Deebo Samuel is gone. So what's Kyle going to do this year when the ish hits the fan? We'll talk about it on today's Gold Standard podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the original Gold Standard podcast. I'm your host, Rob Stats Guerrera, alongside Levin Black. It is Wednesday, July 2nd. We are 2 weeks away, Levin, from rookies reporting for training camp.
Yeah, we need to get back to doing the show normally. I think we've been on again, off again for 6 weeks now.
It's been a weird summer. Stuff is people are on, people are off. Johnny's off tomorrow, unfortunately. Johnny Dell, who's been doing our film breakdowns, which have been great and people have loved. But, it's summer. I don't want to, I'm not a taskmaster, okay? People need to take days off. They take days off, and we work through it. And don't worry, when the season comes around, we'll all be here. We'll all be ready to go. Steph Sanchez is going to be at training camp. I can't wait for that. She's going to do some training camp reports for us. We're getting there. We are so close.
I mean, it does feel close once July hits. It's like, it's more so like you get through the July 4th holiday, and then you go, okay, what's next? Well, you don't have a holiday till Labor Day. And what's happening before Labor Day? Football. So it's kind of like the next thing for people like us that's on the agenda is football. Now, I mean, to an extent, baseball for us specifically. We both like baseball, but I mean, let's be real. Baseball is not quite what it used to be.
Nationally, it doesn't quite have the same juice that it used to have. But we are a football show. We will talk about football here on the program. Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense has a decision to make, Levin, because when they were in a spot last year, when things were dicey, when maybe, Brock had an early turnover and Kyle wanted to calm things down and really get a drive going, he went to two people. He went to Christian McCaffrey and he went to Deebo Samuel. And the best example I can think of this is the first possession after halftime of the NFC Championship game against the Lions, all right? It's 24-7 Lions. Niners are getting their doors blown off, but they get the ball first in the second half. They have a chance to cut into that lead. And what do? 1st and 10, Christian McCaffrey. 2nd and 2, deep ball to Deebo Samuel. 1st and 10, short pass to Deebo Samuel. 2nd and 1, Deebo run. 3rd and 4, they hit Juwan Jennings. Not surprising. 1st down, right back to Christian McCaffrey. 2nd down was incomplete. 3rd down was incomplete. And then they kicked a field goal. So of the 9 plays on the drive, I think 7 went to either Deebo or Christian McCaffrey. That's what Kyle did when he needed to. Now Deebo's gone. So the question to you is, who's that other guy for Kyle?
The guy that touches the ball every single play. Brock Purdy.
Jake Brendel.
Let's hope he doesn't.
Well, technically he does touch it every play.
I know. Well, I'm just saying, like, hopefully there's a better option out there. But no, Brock Purdy. I think that's the answer. If you're going to pay a quarterback big money, you should have a quarterback that is enough of a difference maker that you don't need those stars to lift you. It certainly helps, but you want the guy that's capable of, oh, this play's not working, let's make something work. And those are the guys that win Super Bowls. Those are the guys that go on to get lots of accolades, and those are the guys that end up getting paid. If Brock Purdy can't evolve into that, then it's a failure. That's all there is to it. I think he has evolved into that. I think last year he was trying to do that a little too much, and not necessarily his fault with the crazy amount of injuries he had to his skill position players. He had to put it all on him. But I think he has shown that he's capable of kind of turning crap into something worthwhile.
Brock Purdy had his number one offense last year on the field, and I'm talking Deebo, McCaffrey, Kittle, and Ayuk. Had all those guys for 57 total snaps last year. They were not there. And yet, Brock Purdy was number 3 in yards per attempt, number 4 in success rate, and number 5 in EPA per attempt. And he had the best completion rate on passes 10 plus yards down the field. So people, can say, well, Brock showed he can't carry the offense when, things are down. He did carry the offense, and they were fourth in the NFL in yards.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of statistics that you can go to show Brock was kind of doing a lot of heavy lifting last year. You mentioned, he had the best completion percentage on passes 10 plus yards down the field. He also was well below league average on passes behind the line of scrimmage. It's not like he was getting a whole bunch of easy passes and picking up the yards. The league average was 22%. He was at 15%, well below it. So it's not a case of, yeah, his overall statistics look good because he was just dumping it off all the time. It was the exact opposite of that. He didn't have the touchdowns, but in terms of everything else, it was really good. That's why, despite having a mediocre at best touchdown to interception ratio, his QB rating was still in the high 90s. It's because everything else was really good.
If you're going to be overly simplistic, you can boil what happened to the 49ers last year down to two things. Their offense could not score touchdowns in the red zone, and their defense always gave up touchdowns in the red zone. They allowed scores on almost 70% of opponents' red zone possessions last year. And if you got to the 10-yard line, you scored almost every time. 86% of the time, if you got to the 10-yard line on the Niners defense, you were getting touchdowns. So the other team's getting 7, we're getting 3, or sometimes less if Jake Moody's missing the field goal. That's how you go 6-11 in a nutshell.
I mean, it really was. If they were on the flip side in the red zones, that was a 12-13 win team. The red zones destroyed them. They were not good there in large part because in the red zone, it's easier on a defense to stop. And that's why the Niners, I don't think without their skill players, they weren't getting guys that were capable of winning one-on-one quickly because they were just devoid of skill guys. On the defensive side, I mean, it really boiled down to the fact that the defensive line got bullied, and that allows you to score in the red zone because you can keep running. And then there was a linebacker out there that anytime you wanted, you could have a 5-yard out against him, right? I mean, that there were multiple touchdowns that in crucial games when they still mattered, that's how they got the touchdown towards the end of the game in the red zone was a 5-yard out where a skeleton of a linebacker was covering him. I mean, that's really what it is. They could run the ball in the red zone when they needed to because the defensive line was getting pushed around, especially on the interior. And they had easy, quick out routes to either a slot receiver or running back, whoever was getting covered by that linebacker. That's all. That's really what it comes down to.
He who shall not be named. Is that how we're going to refer to Devondre Campbell from now on? 415 Faithful on Twitter has this comment. Cowing and Pretty Ricky got to make up for the loss of Debo this year. Plus, you'll see 85 catching many more passes this year. That was going to be my choice, Levin. Now that Debo Samuel's gone, the safety blanket, yes, Christian McCaffrey, but it's got to be George Kittle. It has to be 85. Last year, I could not believe this stat when I read it in Warren Sharp's 2025 football preview. Quarterbacks that targeted George Kittle last year, Brock, Dobbs, any quarterback that targeted George Kittle completed 83% of their passes last year. That is absurd. George Kittle is one of the guys defensive coordinators say, we're not letting that guy beat us. Yet when you threw the ball to George Kittle last year, 83% of the time you completed it. And it's not just short 2-3 yard passes. This is deep past the sticks, down the field passes. That's got to be the new weapon for them this year. Please, Kyle, 23 and 85 all day.
Obviously, the efficiency will probably drop some, but the point of that statistic, I think, is that there's a lot of room to have the efficiency drop and still be elite.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He also, in terms of his route win percentage, it was 73%, which was number one. I think that's among tight ends. Warren Sharp's preview didn't spell it out, but I know that I've looked at that statistic right towards the end of the season, and he wasn't amongst the wide receiver leaders, but I knew he was leading tight ends. So I'm pretty sure that's tight ends only. But that would put him like top 10 in the entire league. It's still elite. It's just not, there's a few wide receivers that can beat him. But the point is, like, let him run more. And that's really been your thing. So I'm not going to sit here and say that's a brilliant idea by me. But that's really what it boils down to. Let him be a receiver, which, oh, by the way, also increases his longevity. And you just paid him. So try to increase his longevity.
Mina Kimes had a great stat. George Kittle was first league-wide in the NFL in yards per target last year among everybody. The next closest tight end to George Kittle in yards per target was 31st, and that was Brock Bowers. Like, that's how insanely, ridiculously good George Kittle is. Jason Aponte said it yesterday. I don't know how George Kittle is peaking at age 31, but he's doing it. And if he's doing it, ride that wave, baby.
I mean, I'm peaking and I'm only 39.
Oh, here we go.
I'm not 40. I'm not over the hill like some other people.
Yeah, it's coming. Live like a friggin' freight train. Let me tell you, it's coming. And when
less than 2 months,
I spent my 40th with Michelle, and we were doing food tours around friggin' Houston, Texas. And every place we went, she told everybody, he's 40, he's 40. It's brutal, man.
I mean, at least he didn't do like a bar tour at 40.
Well,
that would have been worse than a food tour. I'm sure you were drinking, but
yes,
if you were trying to relive your 21st on your 40th, good luck to you.
No, you know what? I actually didn't have a drop of alcohol on my 21st birthday. I went golfing with friends, and then I cooked them dinner. That was what I did.
I also did not have a drop of alcohol on my 21st, but that was not my fault. That was the archaic laws that have since been changed by the state of Indiana. They were no alcohol sales on a Sunday, and my 21st was on a Sunday.
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like you could have planned around that.
Technically, I could have gone out Saturday night at midnight, and they'll let you in. But I just went home. It's like I can't go celebrate in the bars truly. Like, my actual birthday is not capable of truly celebrating. So I went home and celebrated with my non-alcoholic family.
You and me have a little cranky old man in a lot of cranky old man. Like, we are old souls, I feel like. And that's a pretty good example of it. Andre Garibay says, I threw my back out in May when I turned 40. So see, there are degrees to this.
For 2 more months, I am a cranky semi-old man.
There you go. Jam 18 says, no alcohol sales on Sunday. What the F? Yeah, I live in Connecticut. They just started alcohol sales on Sunday a couple years ago, but only till I think it's 1 p.m. So basically, once the early games kick off, you can't get alcohol in Connecticut.
See, in Indiana, well, I will say PA is the worst, Pennsylvania, meaning, is the worst state for buying alcohol. In restaurants or whatever, it's like any other place. But the state controls all alcohol sales. So you can only, they have their own stores. So it's only state stores that sell alcohol. So you go to the grocery store, you don't see alcohol. It's miserable. But Indiana, I worked at a liquor store for a while in college. They had a law where non-alcoholic drinks could not be sold cold in a liquor store, and grocery stores could not sell alcohol cold, so that nobody could go get the cold drinks and mix them right in the parking lot and start that was the theory. I don't know if that law still exists. They got rid of what's called the blue laws, to where I think there are sales on Sunday. I don't know if they're restricted at all. I moved out of Indiana before they changed the law, but yeah, Indiana, at least 15 years ago, had a law where so everybody would always complain because you would sell, Coca-Cola in the liquor store, and everybody would be mad because they couldn't get the Coca-Cola cold, or they couldn't get the Red Bull cold. So then, how it takes an hour to get that stuff cold. People aren't going to the liquor store Friday, Saturday night on a college campus, expecting to wait. I mean, this is a very football topic, I know, but
Well, we drink frequently, and let's be honest, the 49ers last year drove us to drink quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I'm drinking right now Blue Point Brewing Company Imperial Sunshine. Not bad. Let me throw that up there for anybody. Yeah, I'm a fan, so I've been enjoying that. Dave 8184 Infantry says dry counties are unconstitutional. No one is happy in the chat about what you just said. Lemon has had a life. Let me tell you. You worked at a liquor store. You were a blackjack dealer at one point. Now you work in a blast-proof room. You have a very eclectic occupational history.
yeah, and I'm trying to change it even more.
See that? Yeah, you're going to be what's next on your list? Professional pallbearer?
Well, I did do that last week.
Yes.
Yeah. Bad joke by you.
You didn't get paid for it.
No, I spent money for it. It's not a secret, so I'll just throw it out there because we're hinting at it. My sister died last week, so that's why we didn't have a show last week. Not to make the show come down, this is a football show. I'm not gonna, but I don't want to beat around the bush and all that. I mean, heck, it was national news anyways because of how it happened. It was a skydiving accident, so it made news.
Well, I brought up the pallbearer thing not because of that. It was.
I know.
I worked with Eric Casillas at NBC Sports and ESPN. He was a professional pallbearer. Like literally,
That's an actual job?
Yes, because some people die and they don't have anybody and they need people to do the thing. And so you can do it. But I was not thinking it was a terrible, insensitive thing for me to say, and I apologize.
No, I knew you weren't thinking about it, but I guess that was what Will Ferrell's job in Wedding Crashers.
Yes, it was.
I have no idea if that was technically his job, but he went to funerals and he specifically targeted bad funerals, if I remember correctly. We're very much on the football topic in this show.
We are very much. So let's pause. Let's do this. Speaking of football, if you're watching the stream right now, you can see a little football in the upper right-hand corner. That logo has changed. It was a different logo before, and the reason for that is because this show and every show on the 49ers Gold Standard Podcast Network has joined the Pro Football Insiders, their division of the Fans First Sports Network. It's all football, obviously. Fans First still has all sports, baseball, basketball, everything. But this is just football. It's just starting up. So go follow them on all the socials. They're up. You can go to profootballinsiders.com. There's articles up there. I'm going to be doing some videos and stuff for the website. I'll be doing an NFL show for them. But that is the future of the podcast. If you're wondering about the logo, that's it. So just, wanted to update business a little bit. I had hinted at it earlier in the week. So go check out Pro Football Insiders. It's a growing network. Like I said, we were just launched July 1st. So this is literally day 2, but come on board now. I promise you're going to like what you see, but that's our little announcement here on July 2nd.
What you're saying is you sold what little soul you had left.
Yes, I am a huge sellout. I am available for bribery of all types. I will take your money happily, and I will do anything I have to do to get it. I will say whatever needs to be said. I will sell whatever product you need me to sell, in case any potential sponsors happen to be watching. Now, let's try to get back to a little bit of the football. We mentioned the Warren Sharp football preview. I love the Warren Sharp football preview. I mentioned it in today's 49ers in 5. It was the one thing to read. I linked to it right in the description. There's a ton of good notes in there. And one thing that he sort of crystallized that I really, really liked was something that we recognized last year, but he actually did the research for it. In 2023, when the Niners went to the Super Bowl, 25% of targets went to running backs. A quarter of every pass attempt went to running backs. And mostly, obviously, that was Christian McCaffrey because they never took him off the field. Last year, 11% of the targets went to running backs. And oh, by the way, they were way less productive when they did. They were 21st in success rate last year when throwing to running backs. We talked about 11, how Brock wasn't taking the checkdowns. And to see it in that stark of a contrast was it felt vindication for me. I was just I felt vindicated because it was yes, that's what I noticed too.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is it's not just because Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. It's because he wasn't there, Brock kind of discounted the other running backs because there were multiple games that in our instant reactions we talked about how the running back was open in the flat on, say like second down or even first down or a 3rd and 4, and Brock wouldn't look at him. Brock would just keep looking down the field trying to push the ball. And it gets into a lot of the things we said. Brock was trying too hard last year. He was trying to make the big splash play, not just taking what's there. But it also gets into the fact that he was not dumping the ball off even when the running backs were open. I mean, you mentioned the success rate. Yeah, it was lower, but that's because he wasn't really taking the easy ones. That success rate would have risen quite a bit if he took the easy ones.
And I don't know, like, it wasn't like Garendo was horrible as a receiver. Nobody's Christian McCaffrey. Like, let's just put that out there. But Garendo had experience actually as a wide receiver at one point in his football career. He seemed like he had pretty good hands when they would throw him the ball. He made a couple of nice catches. Like, and I think that Brock kind of hinted at this when he talked about sort of getting back to how he played as a rookie. Like, dude, if it's there, take it. Like, keep the chains moving, keep things flowing in a positive direction. You'll get chances to throw the ball down the field in this offense. He should know that by now.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the adjustments he's going to make, and it's why I think Brock's in for a great season. I think he's going to have a season that's pushing 2023 numbers, and I think it's because, and I'll give you the credit for really kind of, it was your Chris Sims interview where you kind of put it together that in his first year he was just taking whatever Shanahan said he did. He didn't ad lib at all. And he was just taking whatever the offense design gave him. And then he's kind of morphed into somebody last year that was doing too much of not taking what the offense is designing, but trying to make the special play. And he got too far into that. And if he can combine the two extremes that he's been at, and he specifically his post-season press conference, he literally said he needs to get back to it, as you just repeated. Then I think if he combines those two things, the recipe's there for getting into the MVP conversation again.
And I think the fact that McCaffrey being back will make that easier for him too, because he'll have his safety blanket, for lack of a better word,
and the schedule.
Yeah, that's true too. And the schedule will certainly help. They played one of the toughest schedules in the league last year. This year, the easiest schedule in the league, at least as it looks right now. I want to get to this question, or this comment, I should say, from Dave 184 Infantry. Thank you so much, Dave, because you put this on a tee for me, and I'm grateful for you. Dave says, can McCaffrey have a good season behind this line? I'm not sure about Shanahan's ability to trick defensive coordinators anymore. Now, that is a thing that we heard a lot last year about Kyle's offense. They were 4th in the league in yards last year, top 5 offense in yards last year, even though they were the 2nd most injured offense in the league. So that, to me, says Kyle Shanahan's doing just fine. And in terms of the offensive line, I don't know if you noticed this when you looked over what, Warren's preview. This was stunning to me. When the Niners went to the Super Bowl, they averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Do you know what they averaged last year?
4.2?
4.7 yards per carry.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought it dropped off.
It was basically identical from 2023 to 2024. Where they got into trouble was, number one, they weren't quite as efficient on some of the runs. And number two, the yards after contact went way down. In 2023, they were number 5 in yards after contact per rush. Last year, they were 14 in yards after contact per rush. So Christian McCaffrey was really damn good at picking up yards after first contact, where Isaac Garendo and Jordan Mason and Patrick Taylor and all the friggin' running backs we saw last year were not as good. And that's why the running game was not as effective.
See, there was a couple offensive things that stuck out to me in that Warren Sharp preview that gave me questions on the defense. Offensive statistics that gave me questions on the defense, and it's The 49ers offense last year was second best in punt percentage, meaning they punted the second least on a percentage basis. And they were sixth best at avoiding a 3-and-out. Well, what do those two things mean? It means the defense got rest as well as any defense got rest in the entire league last year. Yet despite that, they are last or in the bottom three in almost every single defensive statistic that matters. So is the defense even worse than we thought?
Well, I think part of it was the predictability, and this jumped out to me. The Niners were in nickel 80% of the time last year, and they only rushed 80% of the time. So think about that. If you're an offensive coordinator, you know 4 out of every 5 plays, you know they're going to be in nickel personnel, and you know they're only bringing 4. 4 out of every 5 plays. Like, you can't be that predictable on defense and expect to stop people, especially when you had some of the injuries the 49ers had, and especially when you had some of the erosion of talent that this defense has had. It's no wonder why they were so bad.
So allow me to expand upon that, because that was the other defensive statistics that they kind of put a little thought in my head. And both of them point to the same problem that should be fixed. The defense gave up the second most points, the third worst touchdown percentage, and yet they were sixth best at forcing 3-and-outs. What that tells me is when the offense found something that worked, there was no adjustments in drive. That points to Sorensen. What it tells me is because they're sixth best at forcing 3-and-outs, it means that I think in between drives, Shanahan was able to get some pointers in there, or maybe the defensive leaders were able to kind of come together, the players on the sideline, and come up with some things that would work a lot of the time. The problem is when it didn't work, there was no defensive coordinator there capable of saying, that's not working, let's change it. And that points to Sorensen was a major problem for the defense last year, and that should be fixed this year with Saleh.
And Kyle essentially said that when he announced that Sorensen wasn't coming back. He said we needed, that Sorensen, he was very nice about it. But in so many words, he said our defensive coordinator was not experienced enough to be able to switch things up when we needed to, whether it was because of what the offense was doing or injuries or whatever. Like, they didn't do to be in anything 80% of the time is wild to me. They blitzed 6 or more guys 1% of the time last year. That was dead last in the NFL, not surprisingly. And look, I'm not saying you should blitz 6 guys all the time. Of course not. But there are certain times in a game when you just send the house. And, if they get the pass off, you get the pass off. To do that 1% of the time, like, how could you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, even though it's not working? Like, Nick Sorensen had to know. I'm sure Fred Warner's coming off the field being like, Nick, this ain't working. And yet they just stuck with it.
Well, so I fault Shanahan a lot for that situation because, one, he hired Sorensen.
True.
I think he struck out in getting the guys he wanted, and that was the fallback, and that was a big mistake. But two, he had an experienced defensive coordinator in-house that I do think took over a lot of the duties towards the end in Staley, but he should have just ripped the Band-Aid off. He should have just dismissed Sorensen and gave Staley the full reins, because it was bad enough to where it's like you got to be sitting there saying it can't get worse. What do we got to lose? You know what I mean? We thought, and we kicked around the idea that maybe Sorensen was going to be Staley was going to take over as defensive coordinator on the bye week when the season was still alive. So it's not like we're just retroactively bringing that up as a thing they could have done. We were talking about it at the time. So I think looking back at all this and getting some time to get some of these more detailed statistics and time to sit with them, I think it's very evident that Shanahan not only made a mistake in hiring Sorensen, but made a mistake in not dismissing Sorensen during the bye week.
he wasn't their first choice. He wasn't their second choice. I don't even know that he was their third choice. Like it was just a very, very bad situation from the word jump last year. We
And I
were,
do feel bad for the record. I feel bad for Sorensen because
yes,
I think he knew. I don't think he necessarily did anything wrong. I think it's clear he was not the guy for the job. He was not ready for it. He is still a very young, inexperienced coach. There
Mhm.
were a lot of things. I think he's a knowledgeable coach. I mean, Shanahan wouldn't have him around if he wasn't. But I think he was forced into an impossible situation because if you're sitting there in that situation and you get offered to be a defensive coordinator and you say no, you're probably never going to get offered it again. So you got to accept, especially with a team that had so much talent. But at the same time, like it's like putting in a freshman that's just not ready. You know?
I agree. He was over his skis. He was not put in a position to succeed. Dave 184 Infantry is going, remember the Titans on us. Coach Yost, you blitz all night. Great movie. I haven't watched it in a little. Maybe I'll show that to my son because he would get a kick out of that. I just did a Bleacher Report stream with Michelle, and we were talking about a lot of these same numbers. She brought up a ridiculous stat that just, when you say it out loud, it makes me laugh now because we're removed from it. But if you had told me at the time, it would have made me rip my hair out. In the last 9 games of the season, 11, how many turnovers do you think the 49ers forced?
I'll go 5.
2. They only forced 17 turnovers all year. And in the last 9 games of the season, they only turned the other team over 2 times. That's how bad it was on defense. You know how hard it makes it for your defense? You know how good your defense has to be if you are not taking the ball away? That means you got to stop people again and again and again, 3 times, sometimes 4 times every possession. No defense can thrive when you are not taking the ball away. And this defense used to be so good at it. They were hideously bad at it last year.
Yeah, it's the ghost of there's a lot of players you could put there, but I was going to say the ghost of 2017, 2018, when they just didn't get turnovers on defense. That was a major problem, and then they kind of fixed it. I think they kind of fixed it by getting more aggressive. Nick Bosa also helped kind of fix that, and he wasn't quite the same last year. But I think that gets helped some by getting a real pass rush going again. But I also think like Lenore is not an interception guy. He's more of a lockdown. Charvarius Ward was kind of the same way. So part of that is I think the guys they have are not necessarily guys that you're going to be seeing get 6-7 interception seasons. They are guys that are more like the guy just doesn't get open against them.
Yeah, that's one reason why I really liked Hufanga. He was always around the ball, tipped balls, fumbles, blocked punts. We remember in the Packers in the playoffs, he scooped it up and scored. He did seem to kind of make those plays. The question is, do the Niners have one of those guys now? Can Malik Mustafa be that type of guy if and when he comes back to the field? We don't know. I don't even know who the other safety is going to be right now, in all honesty. Maybe Jair Brown, but I don't know.
I don't
But
think anybody knows, including the coaches.
yeah, that's the scary part. Early in the year last year, if you remember, it was Fred. Fred was the guy that was generating the fumbles and the interceptions and the pick six he had against the pit. He was the guy that was making those game-changing plays. And then he broke his ankle and he was still really, really good. But obviously he wasn't able to be at that insane psycho madman level he was the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think I would rather have a defense that just gets uber aggressive and kind of lives by the sword and dies by the sword than a defense that just goes, hey, we're going to try to match, like last year's. We're going to match up with them, but we're not good enough. So we just end up constantly bending and then breaking. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather see a defense that says, well, we can't match up with them talent wise. So let's try to get a couple lucky bounces by just getting after them.
Well, in a way, it's kind of reminds me of the Lions last year. They had all those injuries, and Aaron Glenn was just like, bleep it. we're going to blitz everybody all the time. And yeah, we're going to get burned sometimes, but we have no other choice. Like, we don't have the horses. When you don't have the physical talent, you try to make up for it with scheme. If you don't have the scheme, you try and make up for it with crazy physical talent. The 49ers did not have the scheme last year, and they didn't have enough physical talent, and that's why they were so bad. They're just flat out bad. The defense was infuriating to watch. They couldn't generate holding penalties. They couldn't generate false starts. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything. They were 22nd in pressure rate, and they were 23rd in sacks last year. Just so depressing, because we all remember what it looked like when it was good.
Speaking of things that hopefully cannot do anything, I think the number one set of statistics that stuck out to me in the Warren Sharp guide is the blended opponent ranks.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so he takes the 2024 numbers and then he takes his predictions for 2025 and blends them together to have one ranking. You know, he provides both season rankings, but then he has a blended one. So it's based upon, his own predictions, but it factors in moves of the off season because teams change drastically in off seasons a lot. In those blended ranks, here's the rankings. For pass defense that the 49ers will face, the blended rank is 28th. For rush defense, 32nd, last in the league at 32nd. They will face the blended ranks worst rush defenses in the league. Passing offense, also 32nd. Rushing offense, also 32nd. 3 out of the 4, they're facing the grouping of all opponents the worst in the league, meaning they have the most favorable matchup. So they literally face the worst blended rush defense. They face the worst pass offense opponents and the worst rush offense opponents. Like, if they don't win 10 games, it's inexcusable, even if they have injuries. Like, if they have injuries, okay, now you're on an even field talent-wise.
Right. You're saying it's so bad and the schedule lines up so well that even if there are injuries, they should still be able to overcome. And by the way, they did that. In 2019, they were the 6th most injured team in the league, and they made the Super Bowl. So, like, we have seen it before. Warren puts this in the magazine every year, but it's amazing to see it laid out. This injuries with this team have not stopped. 2018, 4th most injured. 2019, 6th most. 2020, most injured team. 2021, 3rd most. 2022, 9th most. 2023, they were the 4th healthiest team, and they kicked the tar out of everybody and went to the Super Bowl. And then last year, they were the most injured team in the league again. I keep saying it because it seems like a rational thing to say, but at this point, it's not true. But if this team just got average injury luck, they would be so much better. And for a decade now, even before Shanahan got there, they have not had even average injury luck.
It's insane. It's one of the things, like, it's too hard to research, but I would love to know if any other sports team has had a stretch that spans multiple regimes with this many years being in the bottom 10 for injuries. And I'm talking all sports, because like you said, it predates this regime, and they changed the entire roster basically when they came in. There were very few holdovers. They have changed medical staffs. So if you want to try to blame them, they have changed medical staffs twice in that span. So I don't know what it is. I think a lot of it is bad luck, but I also think they have to have a flaw with their scouting department, because the scouting department doesn't necessarily change when a regime changes.
I don't know what it is, but I was a little upset when they promoted Dustin Perry to vice president of health and performance, not because of anything like specific that I know about him, but just because he has been here since this regime got here and they've been terrible with injury luck. And I'm not saying it's his fault, but like something, like you got to change everything when it's been this bad for this long. And instead, he's the vice president of health and performance. Now, they've made some other changes since then to their health and performance staff. I think this year they made a couple changes too. So they're trying, but damn, man, it has been brutal. And like I said, last year, their number one offense was on the field for just 57 snaps. That's basically a game if you look at it in terms of an entire NFL season.
Yeah, let's not do that again, please.
No.
I want to see this offense unleashed.
It would be nice to see just for, could we have it for, how about, let's go crazy, 2 games in 2025? Like, let's go nuts. How about 2 games? Terradome says, do hot yoga, do goat yoga, do whatever, man. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but whatever they're doing, it ain't working. And maybe some of that will get better because there's been so much turnover. Part of why you have repeated injuries, if you repeatedly rely on injured people, like Jason Verrett, for example, like, yeah, they're going to get hurt. Hurt guys get hurt. I say that all the time. There's been a lot of change on this 49ers roster, so maybe they've cleared out some of that.
Cleared out some of it, yes, but I mean, a lot of the big names are those guys. Christian McCaffrey. Kittle is constantly banged up and hurt. Trent Williams is constantly hurt. Like, that's part of it. But they had an injury-prone team, and then when the new regime came in, I think that's the bad luck part. The stars that they got just happened to be kind of injury-prone. Now, Christian McCaffrey, they knew what they were getting. You can't say, "Ooh, bad luck there." But a lot of the injuries, I think, since the regime change is just bad luck. The guys that they got. All right, now I will say, I think they're trying to address it now, to whereas early in their tenure, Kyle Shanahan used to rant about how like he doesn't believe in injury prone and stuff like that. I think he's kind of changed a little bit on that.
But even like when they've made a concerted effort, perfect example, Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall had never missed a game in his football life when the 49ers drafted him. And then training camp, he has shoulder injuries, he has hamstring injuries, and he misses basically all the preseason. And then obviously he gets shot in the chest and he misses, most of the year. Even when they've like really gone out of their way to try to get guys that have no documented history of injuries, it still bites him in the ass.
Yeah, it's something's in the water in Silicon Valley. I don't know. Somebody test the water, because like we said, it doesn't make sense, because they have changed who tries to address those injuries. They have changed the strength and conditioning, the people that try to build them up so that they avoid those injuries. They have changed the coaching staff and the front office, so they've changed the people who pick players even. And it's not Jed York's fault. It's one of the few things that you can say that has 0% to do with Jed York.
It's incredibly frustrating. I can't believe we're sitting here again talking about it, because we've literally since we started doing a podcast, it has been a thing, and we say the same stuff every year and it never changes. And some years are worse than others. Obviously last year they were the most injured team in the league. It's certainly as bad as it can get, but man, I'm ready to be hurt again. It's July 2nd. Like, I'm all excited to start football, but I feel like I also know what's coming.
There are people turning 21 that are Niner fans that have no memory of not having an injury-prone Niner team.
God, when you say it like that. But it's why I get so nervous, like when Kyle Williams, he's got a hamstring, he's not doing minicamp. It's like, gulp. Yeah, I clench up. I'm worried that Ricky Pearsall missed all of minicamp. This is why, because I have been conditioned to believe that it's going to be a problem, because it has been for the entire Shanahan era and before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of PTSD involving injuries in the 49ers as a fan. I think the best way to summarize it is if you're a 49er fan that has been through this, you hope for the best when you hear an injury, but you expect the worst.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, to expect anything different would be to just ignore reality. Whether, I mean, look, remember when Elijah Mitchell got hurt? It was like, oh, yeah, Elijah Mitchell got hurt. He's going to be out a week or two, not serious. The next day, Elijah Mitchell was like, I'm out for the year. Next day.
I mean, even like Christian McCaffrey, it's just a calf injury. He'll definitely be ready by season. Yeah.
Nope. He'll play 4 games. By the way, crazy Christian McCaffrey stat, because we're all holding our breath that 23 can play and play well. And a lot of people said, hey, when Christian McCaffrey was out on the field last year, he didn't look that good. And it's like, well, let's go back and examine that real quick. Christian McCaffrey was on the field for 4 games last year. 2 of those 4, he had 100 yards from scrimmage. One of them that he didn't was when Brandon Allen started against the Packers, and the other one when he didn't was when he got hurt against the Bills early in the game. So, like when McCaffrey came back for the first 2 games, he had 100 yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, but it's one of those things you can look at the statistics and retroactively say, well, he wasn't bad. He was doing good things. And then there's also the just remembering what you saw, because we mentioned it. He did not look the same. He did not quite seem to be at full speed. His ability to make guys miss was not there. It was definitely not the Christian McCaffrey of 2023.
Yes, but I think it's unfair to expect him to get back to that. Like acting like that is the standard for Christian McCaffrey, I think is a little unrealistic. 2023 was an historic season. He won Offensive Player of the Year. What did he have? 21 touchdowns in 16 games in the regular season. Like to expect anyone to do that again is crazy. That's one of the best years ever. So I think that if Christian McCaffrey doesn't get back to that in 2025, let's say, I don't think we could say, oh, well, it's not because he's not totally healthy. No, it's just because what we remember from him was one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a running back. And I think that it's not fair to expect him to get back to that level of performance.
Not post injuries, but I think you're mixing a little bit with expecting statistical dominance and just looking at the guy and not seeing quite the same player. Seeing somebody that was definitely trying to play through pain last year. I think when he was out there, he was not fully healthy. And you could see it. If you had watched the Niners previously with Christian McCaffrey, and then you watched them last season with Christian McCaffrey, people were saying it at the time. That's not the same Christian McCaffrey. And they're not meaning because he's not putting up 150 plus scrimmage yards and scoring 2 touchdowns every game. It was because you could see he couldn't cut quite in the same way. He didn't quite have the same gear. He wasn't breaking tackles in quite the same way. He was definitely playing while being hamstrung.
Hamstrung.
Yeah, you like that?
But he was still putting up 100 yards. Like
right, he was still good, but you could see something's missing.
Yes, he did not look the same. I'm not trying to argue that he looked the same, but even a diminished Christian McCaffrey is capable of putting up, 100 yards from scrimmage. And Cynthia hits the nail on the head. I mean, he avoided tearing the Achilles, and honestly,
for now.
Well, but like I don't know if you were into the NBA Finals at all, but I was obviously because my Thunder were playing, and the big thing was Tyrese Halliburton playing with the calf strain. It's a serious injury. He's playing through it. And game 7, first quarter, he tears the Achilles. And you could see it. And the first thing that jumped into my head when he did it was that could have been Christian McCaffrey last year at any point on any play. And thank God it wasn't. Remember how the season ended for him? He took the handoff against the Bills and he run into the right and he just goes down, non-contact, no touch. And we're all like, oh my God, like that could have easily been an Achilles. The fact that he didn't tear either one is a minor miracle.
You just gotta hope for a mostly healthy season from him. Like I'm not expecting 2,000 yards. I'm not expecting, 15 plus touchdowns. I'm just hoping that he's healthy in a majority of games and he's healthy at the end of the season.
That's going to be the key for the 49ers because we think they're going to get back to the playoffs. And if they do, as we've said many times, anything can happen. And if 23 is healthy for the end of the year, that's what's going to matter. Who cares if Christian McCaffrey is there in week 8? I need him in week 18. I need him in week 19. I need him in week 20, hopefully. And if he is, and the Niners are in the playoffs, the sky is the limit for this team, honestly, because it's a one-game situation, and we've all seen crazy stuff happen. So, I can't wait, Levin. I cannot wait. I'm counting the days till the rookies report. I'm bummed because Kawakami and Barrows said when the rookies report on the 15th that they don't have access to anybody. Like they're not going to be doing press conferences or anything. I was really bummed. Like I wanted to get it rolling again, man.
Well, before we end, we do need to address the most important topic here.
And that is?
Is the facial hair fully gone? I can't quite tell.
No, it's still there. I shaved it short. But no, here's what I decided, honestly, because my wife hates it.
No half measures. Shave it or grow it.
I'm getting rid of it once training camp begins. I will shave it off.
I figured.
It's gonna be like, all right, season's starting. Like, let's get back to business.
So you're in the denial phase right now. I'm waiting for training camp. I have not admitted defeat. I am still growing it.
I like it. My wife hates it. She doesn't even want to kiss me. She says it's scratchy. She doesn't like it at all. But you know what? It gave me something to do this off season. I was a little bored. Why not?
My wife hated when I had a goatee because I had one job that you could only have a goatee. You couldn't grow like a full beard. I grew a beard when I moved to PA because the current company doesn't have a shave policy. And while I had it, it grew on her to the point that she didn't hate it at the end, but she wasn't like, no, I want you to keep it. Yeah. And since I have shaved it, she constantly says, maybe you should grow it back.
Aha. See that? That's like a Jedi mind trick that you've done on her.
Yeah, the problem is I don't look good with a beard because I can't truly grow one. Well, I can grow one that sort of, it technically passes as a beard, but it's kind of like the runt of the litter. Yeah, technically that's a dog, but it's not the same as a real one.
Well, let me just say, as someone that has seen you with facial hair and without, you don't look good without facial hair either. So you're kind of in a box there.
I see it. See how he treats me, Jason?
Jason Aponte says, bring back the facial hair, Rob. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs that like I have facial hair, but you can't see it on the stream because that's
well, I can tell you it looks like 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
But I can tell it's 5 o'clock shadow where you had facial hair. Like I can tell it's on the chin and the mustache and not, the rest of the beard and the cheeks and jawline and all that. So it's like, I think he still is trying to keep it, but he definitely cut it in our week off.
Jay says he stands with Levin. See? I don't want Levin getting support on the program, quite frankly. I can't support that for
then treat us better, huh?
Jay, thank you, because you and Steph for what inspired the topic of today's show is who's the Shanahan safety blanket now that Debo is gone. So thanks to Jay and Steph. That's why you got to watch Tuesday's Bully Ball. I thought yesterday's show was awesome from both of them. One of the best we've done in the whole off season. So definitely go and check that out. And you can check it out now because we're ending the show. So this isn't our time anymore. How about that, Levin?
This is no longer our time.
That's right. I don't know. It's perfectly logical and reasonable thing that I say that you always make appear unreasonable and illogical.
It sounds like the teacher in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That's why it triggers me.
You are triggered. Well, if I could,
do you know the scene? Like you have to know the scene. We're old enough. Like probably half our audience probably doesn't because it's an early '80s comedy movie. But there's the whole scene where the surfer dude comes in with pizza, and the teacher's going on about how it's his time, and he has a whole speech about how, well, I've been thinking about this. If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time,
time.
and you say it just like that.
Well, maybe it creeped into my head. That does happen though, and that's part of the reason why I try not to watch a ton of other 49ers content creators stuff. Not because I don't like them or don't respect them. It's because stuff sinks into your brain and you say it when you talk for a living, and you end up using other people's stuff even though you don't mean to at all. And that definitely is a thing that happens. So maybe that leached into my brain. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody needs to repeat what Larry Krueger says.
You said it, not me, but I don't disagree. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, please, and thank you. We appreciate everybody sticking with us to the offseason. We're almost there. Check us out. I promise you, search Gold Standard 49ers wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. You will like what you see. Levin, it's good to have you back, and I can't wait to do it again next week.
Oh, you wanted me to speak. I thought you were signing off. You did your whole speech, and then you usually end it. And sometimes I try to say something, and you cut me off with the